But I think, look, valuation, I think a little bit, Rahul's point is valuation is a little bit of a vanity metric. That's right. Ownership is real. That's right. And I think the minute you realize that, and I think to use Abhay's point, it's your baby, your ownership in that is going to stay forever. And therefore, do the appropriate thing. Take the least amount of capital that you possibly can in order to build what you're wanting to build. I think that realization, I think, is important. And I think a lot of founders, when I speak to now, have it. And I think that's a very, very positive shift, I think, in the ecosystem. I think the second, a little bit to your question of role of, governance and then role of investors. Look, firstly, I think governance and making that a 1-0 and what does good governance really mean, depending on the stage of the company, I think is a learning curve for most people, right? And I think it's getting better. I don't think it is where it needs to be, but I think it's getting better, right? I do think as a founder, you need to separate out capital providers, advisors, and board members, and who does what. And I think it's important to have the maturity. Some people just want to provide capital and don't want to get involved. I think they want monthly, quarterly MIS, and the numbers need to be going. There are others who are deeply involved and actually add a lot of value. And there's a third who is involved and may not add value. But I'm saying, it is important to recognize that and say, look, who is your advisory board? That is actually useful. There is also a fiduciary requirement of it, which is fine, right? But who's the advisory board? And thinking about that, I would say one thing is, if I were to redo life, right? Being early to sort of think about who is actually giving you advice and who's a good advisory board versus who are capital providers and owners of the company. And I think mentally separating those two out, right? Some overlap is of course okay. And I think it's needed, but it doesn't have to be 100% overlap. Right? And I think that realization is important for founders.